promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and Bamako. Good evening and thank you for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. First, the top stories. Senegalese president urges dialogues as the standoff between government and road transport sector workers persists. Malian government approves over 84 billion CFA francs in key sectors, including health and education. Death toll from Tuesday's bandit attack in Nigeria's north-central state of Niger rises to over 60.
Both civilian and security operatives, the number counts 63.
And Victim Center in the Gambia welcomes appointment of Hackett as a special prosecutor to expedite transitional justice process.
We really hope that from this point on we will going at a much faster pace to make sure that justice is delivered as soon as possible.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is a more edit.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Newslink begins here in Senegal as President Bassirou Diomaye Faye prioritizes dialogue to resolve the ongoing strike by road transport workers which has disrupted the country since April 1. The head of state called for calm and urged an immediate resumption of talks between the government and transport unions. He has also instructed the government to submit before the end of April a comprehensive report on reforms needed in the sector. Augustine Koli completes the story.
The strike by road transport workers continues across Senegal, affecting the movement of people and goods and disrupting economic activity in several areas. The action, led by the Federation of Road Transport Unions, follows a breakdown in talks with authorities. In response, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye is calling for restraint and renewed dialogue. Speaking at the cabinet meeting, he stressed the need for stronger consultation between the state and stakeholders while respecting existing laws and regulations. The head of state also underscored the urgency of implementing recommendations from the National Transport Conference held in October 2024 with a focus on modernizing the sector. On fleet renewal, the president emphasized improving public transport and strengthening existing systems, including Dakar Demdik, the rapid bus transit system, and rail networks such as the TER. He has further directed the government to submit by the end of April a detailed report outlining challenges and prospects for transport modernization in Senegal. The transport sector has faced repeated disruptions in recent days, following the strike triggered by failed negotiations between unions and the authorities.
Augustine Koli filed that report. In Mali, the government is taking a new step to strengthen basic social services. At Wednesday's cabinet meeting in Bamako, authorities approved the ratification of an 83.4 billion CFA francs financing package from the International Development Association. The funding will support development projects in key sectors, particularly health and education, at a time of growing budgetary and humanitarian pressures. More details with Veronique Njai.
An estimated 2.3 million people are expected to benefit from this health component, including 1.4 million women and nearly 400,000 young children. In the health sector, the mobilized resources will help maintain free healthcare services for women of reproductive age and children under 5. They will also support the day-to-day functioning of health facilities, including the supply of medicines and vaccines, as well as the maintenance of equipment and infrastructure. Meanwhile, part of the funding will be directed to the education sector. Subsidies are planned to ensure continuity of schooling, particularly in areas most affected by insecurity and population displacement. Around 1.1 million students are expected to benefit from this support. With the ratification of this funding, Malian authorities say they aim to fast-track the deployment of resources to assist the country's most vulnerable populations.
That was a report there by Veronique Njai. In Nigeria, a new testimony suggests an upward death toll from the suspected bandit attacks in the north-central state of Niger. While eyewitness accounts and security sources say 40 people were killed during the raid on Tuesday in Shiroro local government, a resident confirms a new figure to WADR. The victims include security personnel, vigilantes, and civilians. Several homes were set ablaze in the communities of Bagna, Arena, and Yelwa. Yauza Garba Adlawa is a resident of the Bagna community.
Day before yesterday, that was 7th of this April 2026. So we woke up in Arena community. Very sudden, we saw some motorcycles coming up around Bagna community. Approximately, the motorcycle will be at least 200 motorcycles. So we come to understand that those motorcycles, they are notorious bandits. Before we know, they started shooting in Baga. They start exchanging fire with the DSS hunters that were deployed at the place. Before you know, they overthrow the DSS hunters that were deployed at that Baga, the camp. They set the camp ablaze. They start setting people's houses ablaze. They kill as many people there because we count both the DSS hunters, the local vigilante, and the civilians of the town in Arena. We count at least 63 individuals that were shot dead.
Has there been any immediate response from the state and federal governments?
So I can say there is not any decisive action taken by the state government because it was only the deputy governor that was able to visit the place yesterday. And the visitation to us, we can say that the visitation is of no essence because there is no reinforcement, no deployment, no reinforcement of the security operatives because some were killed. And those people, they have overthrown the securities that they were there. What we expect is reinforcement. There is no reinforcement.
Has this in any way spiraled into a serious and concerning humanitarian situation?
I am from Alawa community, and Alawa community is in Shiroro local government. We were displaced since 25 April 2024. There is no anything there. We were deserted. Now the place is the hidden place of the bandits, as I'm speaking to you now. That is one. Today, the people of Arena, because of what happened day before yesterday, most of the people of Arena, 65% of the people of Arena, I can say 75% have leave Arena community to safer place to stay to see what will happen. I'm telling you, there is one thing that is paining me. Most of us are living in a condition that our children are not going to school. We have no access to education. It is something that, when you take away education from an ordinary human being, definitely you are breeding animals. I'm calling on the state government, the federal government, and even the local level. They should do their duty. It is their duty to protect our life. It is their duty to take care of us the way it's supposed to be. We are citizens.
Yauza Garba Alawa is a resident of Shiroro local government area of Niger State in Nigeria. In the meantime, human rights and humanitarian organizations, along with legal experts, are raising serious concerns over remarks made by U.S. President Donald Trump. They warn that the recent statement by Trump to wipe out civilization could amount to threats of grave international crimes. This concern was echoed as the negotiations between the United States and Iran got underway with a 2-week fragile ceasefire in place. The Open Society Foundation says it stands with this coalition, calling for the laws of war to be upheld, especially the protection of civilians and accountability for those who violate international law. Abdullah Hassan completes the story.
The group say they are alarmed by statements suggesting that a whole civilization could be destroyed if the U.S. demands directed at Iran are not met. They caution that such rhetoric could be interpreted as a threat of genocide, a crime prohibited under international law. The Genocide Convention and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court says genocide involves acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial or religious group. The organizations alongside the Open Society Foundation stress that international humanitarian law clearly forbids the targeting of civilians and requires protection against indiscriminate attacks. The coalition warns that strikes on civilian infrastructure, including bridges and power plants, could have devastating consequences for ordinary people. They are therefore calling on all parties to respect international law and avoid actions that could lead to war crimes or crimes against humanity. Since the Middle East conflict began on February 28, countries in the Gulf region have been hit by projectiles, leaving thousands dead and millions displaced, including in Iran. For the African continent, thousands of kilometers away, Energy has been affected and marked by the rising cost of the pump price of petroleum products due to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, responsible for 20% crossing of all oil vessels.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's shift our attention now to Benin, where preparations by the Electoral Commission and campaigns by the presidential candidates are in final stages. ECOWAS, for its part, says it has deployed a reinforced election observation mission to the country ahead of the April 12, 2026 presidential election. More than 100 personnel have been mobilized, including election day observers, long-term experts, and young professionals monitoring the entire process. The mission is led by former Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo, who arrived in Cotonou on April 8. He is tasked with coordinating teams across the country in line with ECOWAS protocols on democracy and good governance. Akufo-Addo says the regional bloc will work closely with Beninese authorities to ensure a peaceful, credible vote that reflects the will of the people. Now, in the Gambia, the government has appointed a special prosecutor for the country. Martin Hackett will investigate cases linked to alleged abuses committed during the rule of former President Yahya Jammeh, as well as implement recommendations by the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission. The British lawyer's appointment was announced at a press conference by the Ministries of Justice and Information in Banjul. Let's join the British Sangdana Mendy in Banjul.
A British lawyer, Martin Hackett, has been appointed to head the Gambia Special Prosecutor's Office. He was selected from a pool of 13 applicants by an independent panel and appointed by the President. His mandate includes investigating crimes committed between July 1994 and January 2017, prosecuting cases identified by the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, and supporting measures to protect victims and witnesses. Dauda Jallo is Gambia's Minister of Justice.
Jammeh has been recommended to be prosecuted and government have accepted and government is committed to ensuring that is implemented. How and where he will be prosecuted, again, defer that to the prosecutor. Because the hybrid court that we have set up through a treaty agreement with ECOWAS is capable of either sitting in Banjul or changing its location to an appropriate place.
Victims groups say the effectiveness of the Special Prosecutor's Office will be a key test of the government's commitment to justice. Sirandao is president of the Alliance of Victims Associations.
Perpetrators have passed away without justice, without facing justice, so we really hope that from this point on we will go at a much faster pace to make sure that justice is delivered as soon as possible.
Officials say the office will work with national and international partners, including ECOWAS, and is expected to coordinate with a proposed hybrid court. The appointment marks a significant step in the Gambia's efforts to address abuses committed during Yahya Jammeh's 22-year rule. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Sangdana Mendy reporting from Banjul.
In Liberia, women leaders have launched a strategic council intended to accelerate female leadership and expand opportunities across the country. The initiative marks a shift from symbolic progress to structured action to increase women's representation in decision-making. The launch on Wednesday brought together CSO actors, business owners, senior state officials, and the leadership of the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Presidential Center for Women and Development. From Monrovia, Abraham Parker reports.
At a press conference in Monrovia, the executive director of the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf Center for Women in Development, Ellen Pryor Harris, highlighted the significance of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's historic election as Africa's first democratically elected female president. She reaffirmed the center's commitment to empowering women to do targeted leadership programs. According to her, the initiatives tied to the gathering will focus on building critical skills, expanding professional networks, boosting visibility, and increasing access to leadership opportunities.
There are still gender gaps to be addressed. So when we talk about women's leadership, we are not just speaking in general. We are responding to very real numbers, very real gaps.
The center also announced plans to build the African Women's House in Liberia, aimed at strengthening women's leadership across the continent. Funded To advance the legacy of African women leaders, the center continues to position itself as a key institution supporting the next generation of female leaders. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Senegalese president urges dialogues as standoff between government and road transport sector workers persists. Malian government approves over 84 billion CFA francs in key sectors, including health and education. Death toll from Tuesday's bandit attack in Nigeria's north-central state of Niger rises to over 60. And Victims Center in the Gambia welcomes appointment of Hackett as special prosecutor to expedite transitional justice process. Still ahead, we do have the guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget to follow our live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. Ghana's crude oil production has declined for the sixth consecutive year, with output falling sharply over the past 6 years. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, in its 2025 annual report, says production dropped from a peak of 71.44 million barrels in 2019 to 37.3 million barrels in 2025. This latest data indicates a sustained downward trend in the country's petroleum sector. WDL's Accra correspondent Nadine Tete reports.
Ghana's crude oil production continues to decline, with the Public Interest and Accountability Committee (PIAC) reporting a sixth consecutive drop in output in 2025. Presenting the committee's 2025 annual report in Accra, chairman of the committee Richard Elima said production fell from 71.44 million barrels in 2019 to 37.3 million barrels in 2025.
In 2019, we had our highest production of oil of 71.4 million barrels. Compare that to 2025, where we had 37 million barrels. What is even more significant is the fact that from 2019, the oil production has been reducing consistently till we came to that sharp drop in 2025. It is something that PIAC has raised a number of years.
PIAC is calling on government through the Petroleum Commission to develop a framework to improve investment in existing producing fields, particularly the Trinebois Inyura Ntome 10 field, where production has underperformed initial projections. The committee also recommended improvements in the country's regulatory and fiscal frameworks, as well as increased data acquisition in new basins to support exploration and the discovery of new reserves. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
The first edition of the International Forum on Renewable Energy has wrapped up in Niamey, the Nigerian capital. The meeting was held as part of the National Day on Renewable Energy. It brought together energy ministers from the AES bloc who were received by Niger's Prime Minister Ali Mohammed Lamin Zain. Chris Fatijo completes the story.
This meeting at the Prime Minister's office comes at the end of the first day of the International Forum on Renewable Energy. Energy ministers from the AES countries presented an initial assessment of their discussions. Talks focused on speeding up solar energy projects and strengthening grid interconnections to ensure the Confederation's energy independence. Burkina Faso's Minister of Energy, Mines and Quarries, Yakuba Zabre Guada, spoke on the matter.
The theme of this forum, as you know, is directly linked to industrialization. We also took the opportunity to seek guidance and recommendations from His Excellency to help shape the next phase of our work. This visit is equally a chance for us to discuss key issues that will further strengthen cooperation within the AES and help define the roadmap for further actions.
At the end of the forum, participants proposed joint financing solutions to expand electricity access for populations. It is worth noting that the average access rate of electricity in Niger stands at about 22%, according to the country's Energy Information System report published in 2022.
Christopher Ticho voiced a report as found by our Niamey correspondent Yakuba Abibulai.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Now, the Gambia has entered a crucial phase in its transitional justice process following the recommendations of the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, which called for the prosecution of 69 individuals for crimes committed between 1994 and 2017, including former President Yahya Jammeh. In response, the government, in partnership with ECOWAS and other stakeholders, has established a special accountability mechanism to deliver justice through both domestic and international pathways. A key step in this process is the appointment of British lawyer Martin Hackett as the Gambia Special Prosecutor, tasked with leading investigations and prosecutions of TRRC-related cases. To discuss what this means moving forward, we're joined by Ida Pearson, Special Advisor to the Ministry of Justice on post-TRRC matters.
The Special Prosecutor's Office at the moment is a local office established by our National Assembly through an Act of Parliament. So he will be working in the Gambia. His team we expect to be predominantly Gambian. It's always been a policy of transitional justice in the Gambia that we're Gambian-led, only international where necessary. And so he'll be working from the Gambia. Of course, unless necessary that he should travel elsewhere, whether for investigations or for other reasons. But this is a local office in the Gambia, which, by the way, upon full establishment of the special tribunal, which is the internationalized component of our accountability mechanism, up until then, that office at that point being absorbed into the operations of the tribunal. Up until then, this is a standalone, independent, local office in the Gambia that will be bringing cases before our own High Court.
I would like to ask, what are some of the challenges that the Minister of Justice has recognized, identified, and have worked on or consider to work on to make the work of Mr. Hackett much easier?
The predominant challenge that was noticed during the proceedings of the TRRC, so between 2019 to 2021, were legal in nature, that we are going to have legislative gaps in order to try some of these crimes. And so much of the effort that has been made between 2021, 2, 3 to 4 has been on setting up the legal framework to make these prosecutions necessary. That has made us introduce the Special Accountability Mechanism Act, the Special Prosecutor's Office Act, which is what has been fully activated now with the appointment of Mr. Hackett, and of course our negotiations with ECOWAS for this internationalized tribunal we call the Special Tribunal. So that has taken some of the time, but other reasons or other challenges that we now foresee certainly are not unusual in the Gambia, which will have to do with capacity, institutional capacity gaps. So some of the discussions that we've had today with Gambians is the state of forensics in the Gambia, our capacity to conduct forensic work and how important that is to criminal proceedings as well. These will be some of the capacity challenges that this office will face. However, we are hoping that through partnerships, collaboration with our sister ECOWAS countries, but also with the international community, that we can bridge this gap.
At least the government has done well to commence the reparation process, but for some victims and their families, what they desire the most is justice. So how soon will Mr. Martin Hackett, if that be one of the priorities, begin to prosecute some of these cases?
We do not want to speak for Mr. Hackett. Certainly, the entire government, and I think the entire Gambia, civil society included, will be supporting Mr. Hackett, but he does have an independent and autonomous office. So we look forward to him hitting the ground running through some of our support, but also equally informing us of the status of investigations. We know that 69 persons have been recommended for prosecutions. The TRRC has submitted documents to the Ministry of Justice. This is what we will hand over to him. Look forward to supporting the swift operationalization of his office, but equally hearing back from him about what is the prosecution strategy and when is he really going to commence proper. Yeah, so we cannot speak for him, unfortunately, but I think the message is well noted. Absolutely, that justice delayed is justice denied. We should not be delaying. We will not be delaying. I'm sure Mr. Hackett will take that on board very, very seriously and proceed as swiftly as he possibly can.
That was Ida Pearson, Special Advisor to the Minister of Justice on post-TRRC matters. In sport news, the president of the Confederation of African Football, CAF, Patrice Motsepe, says His visit to Senegal reflects a strong commitment to the country, its government, and football authorities. He met with President Bashir Diomaye Faye and reaffirmed CAF's zero-tolerance stance on corruption while pledging fairness for all member associations. On the AFCON 2025 final dispute, Museba says CAF will respect the final ruling of the Court of Arbitration for Sport, following Senegal's appeal over the decision that awarded the title to Morocco. In the UEFA Champions League quarter-final, first leg, Atletico Madrid beat Barcelona 2-0, while holders Paris Saint-Germain secured a 2-0 win over Liverpool. And that's it on this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM, Dakar. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Maudoju for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at WADR English. Coming up next at the bottom of the hour is a repeat broadcast of our flagship environment program, Enviroscope. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.